So this right now, today, first day of week 2. We got a lot to do. Hopefully a lot can get done this week because I'm planning to have this whole project wrapped up in a month or so. So what we got to do, we finally got in the over fenders. We want to cut the body and make some more progress. That's always the plan, right?
And now, you're watching October 31st, Halloween, November 1st, Christmas, man. Cut that out. Channel of YouTube. Welcome to Bodie Vision.
Hey, so thank you so much for joining me on yet another video. Like I said, I don't want to waste any time. I just want to go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to pull these over fenders off. The reason why I have the Clecos on here, even though the body is going to be shaved, I put the Clecos there so that way I can put the over fenders back on the same exact place every single time. That's more of like a guide for me. I know every time I take them off and put them back on, they're going to be where they need to be. So enough talking, let's wrap it up, take them off, and figure out where I want to make that first cut. Here we go. So right now at this point we are definitely looking a little bit crazy. You can see the metal just folded over. Each one of these is going to get welded onto the body. And one thing that I always have to remind myself, or that I ever tell anybody else if they're doing this, clean the metal beforehand. So I cleaned this first, then I cleaned that, and then I folded it over, because the last thing you want to do is try to weld dirty metal or try to clean it out while those are all together. So clean it, and then when you put it up, it'll be nice and ready to go. So speaking of welding, that's the next step. So I finished welding up this side, and with the other side, it kind of got a little crazy. There was just so much filler over everything. Now I have dust everywhere. It's a huge mess. This is from just now. I actually rewrapped this motor the other day because it was all dusty. I want to try to keep the dust down over here. And man, it was getting crazy, so I didn't film it. I didn't want dust getting all on the camera. But what I did just show you, or what I'm showing you right now, is there was some dents over here. I tried to pull them out a little bit. And then I got the metal ground down to all the way right here. So that's just raw metal, and underneath there, it looks atrocious. I'll show you that in a little while. But since those other clips, this is all welded up, looks pretty good, nice and consistent heat. And that's how it should look. So what I'm going to do next, because I'm going to be using panel bond with those panels, I want to make sure that bond is as good as possible. So I'm going to strip all the paint that's on the car, because there's single stage, there's 1, 2, maybe even 3 layers on there. I'm just going to bring it down to bare metal and then go with an epoxy primer, and then I'm going to put my fiberglass panel, or the fiberglass panel, I'm going to bond it right to that primer. That way it's metal, epoxy primer, and then the panel bond, and then the new panel. That way we have the absolute best chance of that panel adhering to the surface, because that's all that's going to be holding it. Alright, so this is looking good. Now the main idea behind this, that metal, I took a 80 grit flap disc to it, so that metal, it's extremely rough, and then the epoxy primer is going to have an extremely good bond with that metal epoxy primer. This is direct to metal DTM epoxy primer, and then on this side you can really see how bad it was as far as the waviness and dents. This was underneath all the Bondo. just looking really crazy. So the next thing that I want to do now that it's all epoxied and all protected, I'm gonna go ahead and scuff this. And also I want to do my seam sealer on the radius. I got to do all of that. And then after that, I'm going to put rubberized undercoating under here. Anywhere that you're going to see, it's going to be over the seam sealer. And then the panel bond is going to go directly to the scuffed primer and to the back of the over fenders. Now I got to prep the over fenders as well before I put the panel bond on there, but I'll go into that a little bit more when we get there. So when it comes to prepping the inside of the over fenders, what I want to go ahead and do is I want to take them off, and then on the inside of them, that's where you see the raw fiberglass. So what I want to do, and what I am doing, is I'm taking 60 grit sandpaper and scuffing that up really good, because I want to expose some of those fibers, or the actual raw fiberglass. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean that down with some acetone. Acetone is always what you use when you're working with fiberglass, and also like gel coat if you want to paint fiberglass. That actually reduces with acetone if I'm not mistaken. So fiberglass, acetone, they go together. But anyway, so after I scuff it to expose those fibers, I'm going to clean it with acetone, and then after that, it's all good, it's all prepped, and then the panel bond is going to go directly on those panels. And then this is the moment of truth. We're going to stick it, and hopefully it sticks, right? So at this point right now, it's about 18 hours later, and the panel bond directions, it states to give 24 hours for this to cure. So this is what I used right here. This is just by Sam. Let me put it up so you can actually read it. Multi-purpose panel adhesive. And then it's pretty cool because this is an epoxy, so you have to mix it with the hardener, but these are two different sizes, so that way the ratio stays the same. And then it comes down this tip, and as it travels through all these little channels, it actually gets all mixed up. So as it's coming out at the end, it's all mixed and ready to go. So since I gotta wait a little longer, I definitely want to make sure that everything's good, even though right now, I mean, it sounds more solid than it's ever sounded ever. But I'm just gonna leave it. So I want to continue to work on the car. The last thing that I'm gonna do in this video, I want to go ahead and prime everything else, so that way I can start getting the bodywork dialed in and refined that much more. I want to prime it so eventually I can block it with the guide coat, blah blah blah. So go ahead, mix up the primer, prime time, and we are definitely moving right along for this Halloween, right? Alright, so everything that I wanted to get primed is now primed. If this step doesn't make sense to you, in my last video I did a whole entire list breakdown of everything that I want to be doing, and this video is just going into that. And it's awesome that we got the things molded, the over fenders, and I was kind of thinking, so I got all that stuff underneath it like you just saw, and then this is the perimeter. I was thinking maybe I'll take some of that panel bond and do a thin bead right in here, and after I lay down that really thin, really small bead, just take a rubber glove and run my finger along it, just so that way it's going to be bonded at all the edges. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I think it's good enough. Or I was thinking of sanding it down really smooth so that way that edge just tapers and almost disappears into the other panel, and then just doing a little bit of filler to kind of fill in that transition. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do yet. I'll figure it out, and that'll be in the next video. So let me know what you think so far. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like this video, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff you know to do YouTube. Whoo, man, be safe on Halloween, or if you're watching this after Halloween, I hope I don't see your Halloween mugshot. So I'm out.
It's not a game.